No, I am
Well,
absolutely
that's
not.
what I'm hearing. They have a transcendent. Evil has been around since the beginning of man, if that's your point, and that's exactly right, and it comes in different forms. I use the word statism to cover all of them because I didn't want to write a 500-page tome that nobody would read. So I called it statism. It could be Marxism, it could be fascism, it could be National Socialism, it can be democratic socialism, you name it. But they all grow out of the same theory, the one you're talking about. We can call it progressivism, which everybody likes to do because that was very popular in the 1800s and the early 1900s here. But the bottom line is that it is a form of tyranny. And when I speak to people, and this is what's important, I have to speak in plain English, and I have to get through to people, and I have to explain to people why they are threatened. And if I go through the whole history every time I speak to them, starting from Plato all the way up to today, which I'm quite familiar with, we'll all meet in a telephone booth and it won't make any difference.
You can't do that, but at the same time, I think you do need to convey that there is a powerful idealistic drive behind their mistaken approach, and that is why they are so persistent.
It's not a mistaken approach. It's a conniving, vicious, strategic approach.
Agreed.
All right, my friend.
You mentioned a moment ago how there's a logic to what is going on right now that goes all the way back to FDR and the New Deal. And I think a lot of us in the room...
He's actually right. It goes further back than that. But I bring it up to the New Deal because most people understand that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us in this room, the arguments we would make in opposition to this would also point to the overthrow of the New Deal and the Great Society. And I don't know if we can ultimately win without making those types of consistent intellectual arguments. So I guess the question is, how can Republican politicians win incrementally while still making that case?
Well, that's a different question, Republican politicians. I'm not a Republican politician. The first thing we need to do is get our arguments straight. Social Security's broke. Medicare's broke. Medicaid's broke. They're going to crumble. It's just a matter of when. The New Deal is a failure. And it's a failure because you can't have those three programs alone with $55 trillion in unfunded liability, where the controller of the United States, before he left, David Walker, made the point that this is going to destroy our society if it isn't addressed in some significant way in the next few decades. So if we hang around the next few decades, the programs are going to collapse on their own, and the New Deal will be proven a failure. The problem is all the misery that goes down the drain with it. So to come up with practical arguments, I can think of one. I mean, I can go back to some of the arguments that have been made by people other than me, but that I like, which is you start to wean people off of these programs. People who are already on Social Security and Medicare, I mean, where are they going to go? The government promised them these programs. They've paid a lot, thinking that these are insurance, which they're not. And so you just basically have to bite the bullet and accept the fact that there's a significant percentage of the population that is on these programs and will remain on these programs. But what about a 21-year-old today, or 25-year-old, or 30-year-old today that wants nothing to do with these programs? We need to reach those people and give them options, private sector options, market options, and we can do that. And I firmly believe that we do not spend enough time focused on the young people in this country, the next generation, because that's the generation that's getting screwed the worst. Yes, sir.
Hi.
Hi.
I wanted to ask about
I'm a little hard of hearing, so let me hear
Okay.
you. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I wanted to ask about health care, health insurance reform. I didn't know this prior to the debate, but someone cannot currently purchase health insurance across state lines. I was just wondering if you knew the reason why that is. And secondly, what is your take on why Congress has not just repealed that law?
Well,
additional competition would drive down the cost.
Well, one of the reasons we have the Interstate Commerce Clause was to prevent exactly that, because states, when we had the Articles of Confederation, forget about insurance, They weren't honoring contracts in other states. They weren't honoring taxes levied in other states. They weren't honoring the currency of other states. They were developing their own armies and all the rest of it. And so the Interstate Commerce Clause was supposed to put an end to that. It was supposed to promote commerce, not limit it. Congress created this situation, actually, after a Supreme Court decision. They talk about, well, we're going to take the antitrust thing away from the insurance companies. The insurance companies never asked for it. The states asked for it because the states wanted to regulate the businesses within their own borders. And that's how that developed. And so the problem is that if you're an insurance company headquartered in New Jersey, you are compelled by that state to offer certain types of benefits as part of any policy that you offer. Okay, well, great. South Carolina says, not here. You're not going to do that here. You're not going to do business here. And so over time, that's been developed. So what people like me, and I'm not the only one, certainly say, people who've studied this a long time, is we need to get rid of that. We need to follow the Interstate Commerce Clause, the Commerce Clause, promote commerce, promote competition, get rid of these state monopolies, and unleash free enterprise rather than regulate it to death. And that's just one thing. And you know, there's like 4 or 5 things that if they were done would make a huge difference in how we develop healthcare policies and pay for healthcare in this country that would, over time, lower prices and increase competition. I understand the president's going to have a summit in December on how to create jobs. Thinking to myself, oh my God, you haven't figured that out yet? I mean, we know it's not the stimulus. We know it's not tax increases. Maybe it's tax decreases. We know it's not more regulation. Maybe it's less regulation. But they're so ideologically committed to their big government agenda, they're never going to promote competition between states. What they're going to do is wipe out all the state regulations and centralize it under some commissioner. And I want to be that commissioner so I can make sure I can get the health care that I want. Yes, ma'am. Is this all you expected from me, Leonard? Are we doing okay here?
You're doing good.
All right, thanks.
Most of us are lawyers here, and I think we're able to understand.
Any slip and fall lawyers here? No, go right ahead then.
We're able to understand and discern some of the threats that you've talked about. And I understand that you've been on a book tour, and I think you were in Long Island.
No, I went to 2 places.
Long Island?
Long Island
Okay.
and Tyson's Corner. I was traveling America. From Long Island to Northern Virginia.
Real
yes.
bellwethers.
Yes.
By the way, I promised I would let you know that Lieutenant Benjamin Vargas of the New Haven Fire Department drove out to Long Island from Connecticut and said he stood in line for 4 hours and still couldn't get to you, which tells me that a lot of people were waiting to see you. And I was curious if
I was there 7 hours.
If you can tell us what you're hearing from, like working people and middle-class people and what they're able to discern, because, as lawyers, we see things a little differently.
Fair enough. Well, this phrase middle class I've never accepted, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't know what it means. And I write about that too. Is a 28-year-old paralegal working in a Manhattan law firm and an atheist, earning $85,000 a year. Does that person like the family of 5 in northeastern Philadelphia, a mechanic who's a union member who earns $45,000 a year? They're both in the middle class. This is all Marxist crap. The middle class, this class, that class. I will tell you this. The people are upset. And they're upset for a lot of reasons. In some ways, Obama is doing some of our work for us because he's taking what a lot of people have relied on, like Medicare, created by his ideological forefathers, and turning it on its head. I mean, you can't take $500 billion out of Medicare without destroying it. It's that simple. And the unemployment rate, which is effectively, when you consider people taking part-time jobs and people who've dropped out, 17.5%, 10.2 if you just take the people who are out of work, is so high in the industrial heartland of the country, which is a very blue area. There's such an enormous opportunity for an articulate conservative on the national scene to take advantage of this from a political point of view, because we have answers that I think are far superior than anything the other side does. We know they don't, because they've basically had a blank check to do whatever they want, and it's a failure.